Happy Tuesday. Hopefully everyone's having a glorious day. It's overcast. It's about 88 degrees here in Austin. At least that's what it says. About 86 degrees according to KView. It's quite pleasant outside. But we have to talk about one of my city council members here in Austin because apparently she's so out of touch. I mean, maybe she's not out of touch. Maybe she knows exactly what she's doing. But she's going to hurt Austin even more if she gets her way, which means we need to elect some more members to the city council to combat this DSA takeover because it's going to hurt everybody. But I'm going to start off with a thread that she wrote. According to Vanessa Fuentes, I think she's in, I forget which district she's in, but she's not up for re-election. Our renters' right agenda, with our housing and displacement crisis worsening each day, it's time to take action and do right by renters in Austin. Constant $200 to $300 rent increase are completely unreasonable for Austinites. I agree 100% with this. You know how to prevent the rent increases? That is to work with AISD, the Travis County Appraisal District, to lower tax burdens on these properties so they don't have to keep raising up the rent in order to make ends meet. That's one solution. But she's not going to go that route because that requires real leadership. That requires fixing a solution opposed to creating another issue that will have to be fixed down the road. Over the next few weeks, Austin, Texas Council will take actions on what I am proud to champion as Renters' Right Agenda. The Renters' Right Agenda has 4 important components to help renters at this critical time. I'm not saying screw renters, by no means. But in order to help renters, by not solving the issue, you're going to screw landlords. There's already a concern that private companies like BlackRock and other companies of that nature are buying up these houses and renting them out instead of having individual ownership or individual landlords or a competitive of landlords. You're going to be stuck with corporations. Know your rights. Austin City Council plans to administer a Tenants Rights Assistant Program. This program will mediate meetings between landlords and tenants, provide counseling to renters, and investigate fair housing complaints to crack down on discriminatory practice. On paper, that sounds awesome. What this means, if I were to own land or own a house and my tenant is 3 months overdue, I can't kick them out because you gotta have a mediation meetings. Like, do you really want to kick this person out? What can they do to not be kicked out? That could be they need to pay their rent. And they'd be like, well, that's not an option. You gotta do something else. Which means I'll be stuck renting a house without being paid for. That's what this really means, how I say it. Oh, here comes the juicy part. The right to organize, as in to unionize tenants. Plans to protect renters' right organize. This policy will protect renters who wish to meet and organize and allow them to set up meetings with their landlords, protect renters from participating in mutual aid, and prohibit landlord retaliation. That means if I own an apartment complex and a bunch of renters who are renting that doesn't like that I raise the renter fee because property tax have to be paid, they can organize and I have to recognize them as a union. They can't kick them out at the end of their lease to say that they're not welcome because that'll be retaliation and that takes away my right as a landlord. Now, I'm not saying that this is a terrible thing. I'm just saying this is how it's going to be abused and used, or used and abused. The right to cure. This is where I actually agree with her on. We'll vote later on an item established the renter's right to cure, which will require a landlord to provide a period of time to fix or cure a renter's lease violations before facing harsh penalties such as eviction. I think they should have the right to cure, and if they have the willingness to make double payments or even make a payment, I'd be more willing to not kick them out. Now, I'm not a landlord, nor do I know the legal ramifications or the legal works of this. But if a tenant is willing to work with the landlord, then they should be able to stay in there as long as it's not becoming a burden to the landlord. Number 4, close displaced loopholes. Plans to update the tenant relocation ordinance to close loopholes that encourages predatory displacement practice. This allows us to crack down on invasive housing practice while protecting renters in apartments and mobile homes. I'm not too sure what that means. These policies cannot have been made possible without the leadership of the former D4 council member, commie Greg Kassar, who ruined Austin, who got cops defunded, and various advocacy groups who set the right to organize and right to cure ordinance change in motion. This is a major step in prioritizing our community members and will ensure that they have the tools required to protect themselves and build solidarity. Thanks, whoever this person is, Basta, which is probably a DSA front, probably another one, Tenants Council, and others that made that possible. Now, like I say, I agree with the right to cure. If there's actually a process that they're willing to work on, if the tenant's willing to work, then the landlord should have to work with them within reasons. I mean, if they're about 10 grand in back due payments, then they have to cut their losses and they have to regain some of their losses. Yeah, I'm not going to listen to you. The city council will vote to codify an ordinance establish tenants' right to organize without retaliation and tenants' rights assistance program. But what about landlord assistance program? You're asking landlords to go without payment when they have mortgages on their property. Eventually, they're going to be called in and be like, "We need your payment, bro, or we're taking your apartment, or we're taking your house." I mean, without landlord relief program, tenants are still going to get screwed. On Thursday, Austin City Council will vote on pressing tenants' rights, codifying the ordinance. By the way, this was October 10th and updated on the 11th, which is today. Codify ordinance including the right to organize without retaliation from landlords and creating a renter's right program. Renters do not have a lot of rights. They actually do in Texas. I mean, you have squatter laws. You have to give them 30 days notice. You have to go through the court proceedings in order to evict, which is a right that the renters have, which means it gives them more time to prepare or to move. So there's a lot of rights. They're being misleading. Said the council member Vanessa Fuentes, these rights that renters do have, we don't know about them, which I agree, which education to renters to know their rights is on the renters themselves. We could definitely make it easier, which I agree with, because we'll like the most worst thing that we have in America is people not knowing their rights. And we don't make it easy for them to know their rights. As for many Central Texans struggling with unaffordability, the city says over half of Austinites are renters, yet renters' rights are very minimum. They have a lot of rights. They were taken care of during COVID, while landlords couldn't get payments. Austin City Council paid renters, and they were able to use the funds however they see fit. And they gave them more money. They kept on giving money while the landlord is past due on their mortgage for the property that they're renting. enshrining that the protections that any renter can have a conversations with the neighbors without the fear of retaliation or with that protection for what they're doing is totally legal, says Fuentes. According to Donna Shaw Heron on Thursday, Austin City Council vote on pressing two tenants' rights. Blah, 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 blah. We already heard that. Fuentes says this will help weed out bad landlords who take advantage of renters. No, it's not. It's going to drive away good landlords. Once they get a couple of complaints, once they get a couple of tenants talking to each other, while you prevent them from kicking out deadbeat tenants, while they go under, they'll be forced to sell their property. Even though they're good landlords, they won't be able to make a profit because you won't let them raise their rent to offset the cost of the school district and rising property values. I mean, I'm just looking at what it's going to be for. On paper, it sounds great. Don't get me wrong. I agree with the principle, but when it's in practice is when we're going to see it. Now, I may be wrong. They may pass these things and nothing's going to happen, or we won't see the cause or the effect for years to come. Hopefully, we never see the cause effect to come. An elderly man shared with me that he was once yelled at by his property management team because he was having a conversation with his neighbors, said Fuentes. That is simply not okay. Is he willing to testify in the court of law? Is he willing to make a risk of perjury statement to make it public record? I mean, I could say that Fuentes said I shouldn't have the right to own a home because I'm a white male, and me being single, I need to rent instead of own my house, and my house should be given up to a family unit. I could say that. I mean, it's not truthful by no means, but I'm just saying that I could come up with a story that she's being mean to me, even though she's not. I've never said those things. She's never said those things. I'm just saying, without a source or backed up by risk of perjury, I don't know if the story is true or not. The council will also vote on creating Tenants Rights Assistance Program that will provide counseling and resources to help tenants and managers resolve issues. On paper, that sounds great. Now, it could be that they are forced into arbitration, which means that the landlord gets screwed while the tenant gets a free ride or a free lunch. And that's what I'm fearful of. The same sentiment said at the principal metric property management at the head of the Austin Apartment Association, Lindsay Haynes. Haynes says that she agreed that education is the right move, but codified in the ordinance, not so much. The Airbnb effect could be one reason behind the Austin skyrocketing house prices. Not really, all those are related articles. Renting housing provides have state laws in place that cover retaliation, so adding additional and unnecessary layer has some really significant unintended consequences that could have complicated the housing provider's ability to enforce the apartment lease contract, said Haynes. So there's already state laws preventing this from happening, so we don't need city ordinance because it makes it redundant. It's the same reason why a city doesn't make laws, because the state makes laws. There's redundancy in there. As long as the landlord can show that they're in good faith conversation with their tenant, they'll be fine. Fuentes says, I have my doubts. Would you like to weigh in? There's still time to sign up to speak at Thursday City Council meeting. I have my doubts. I have my doubts that this is actually something good, because anytime the government gets involved, it turns out to be not so great for the voters or the landlords. And I'm speaking up to the landlords, because landlords tend to get a raw deal they call slumlords. Now, most of the time, landlords are just average Joes trying to earn some extra scratch, some extra cash, or another revenue source. And in order for them to make an extra revenue source, they would have to raise rent to cover property taxes that are exploding here in Texas, throughout Texas. It's not just Austin, but it seems like Austin has seen the more of an increase over years as people flood in, coming to Austin, buying up homes, spending well over the asking price or what the value of the homes is, making it harder for the people that live here, like myself, be able to afford a $10,000 a year plus bill if they don't get this under control. I am expecting my taxes to be somewhere around 9,000 to 10,000 this year. Last year it was 7,000. The year prior was 6,000. So, like I said, this isn't me complaining for the sake of complaining. This affects me personally. Now, I have homestead, which only protects me so much. But I think they value my house at $500,000 when I paid just a little north of 100. Back then, property taxes were about $1,000 to $2,000, and within 4 or 5 years, it was probably 5 grand. It stayed at 5 grand ish for a long time. And within the recent years of the valuations from the Travis County tax appraisal, is now worth close to 500,000. That's before the market started tanking a little here in Austin. So I'm expected anywhere between a $9,000 to $10,000 bill for taxes that I owe on this house, and my house is paid for. And I don't know how many years I could afford doing that, because that's about a sixth of my pay that I make from my work. Because I make around 60-ish K a year, and I can't afford to live in Austin in the house I have no mortgage on. Anyways, that's just me kind of venting on how Austin's becoming unaffordable, and there's people like Fuentes that is making it even harder for me to afford to live here in Austin. With that being said, leave a comment down below what your thoughts are. Do you think tenants need more rights, or do they have enough rights? Do you think this is going to backfire and make Austin more unaffordable because landlords are not going to be investing in apartments here in Austin? And the current landlords for homes are going to sell their property because they don't want to deal with this mess, which is going to create less opportunities for renters to rent a home. Let me know a comment down below on what your thoughts are. And please smash the like and subscribe button in any all platforms, or just the platform you're currently watching. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.